Recording in progress. So we're going to go through this fairly quickly, but I think we can. I don't think there's...
All right, so we're recording now.
Okay. I'm going to call the August 9th meeting of the Ad Hoc Parking Committee to order. The first item of business is, in the room is Bob Weisbord and Nancy Bryant, and Robin Reed is absent today. The first item of business is to approve the July 26th minutes. Okay.
Fine.
You're fine? Yeah, we approve the minutes. Okay. Manager Bryant, this is the first meeting of the month. Do we have an update on mobile usage?
Sure, so I'm sorry this wasn't in your packet, but I'll at least share on my screen here. Here's like the dashboard for Park Mobile that we've had. And looking at this monthly transaction area, obviously May, there was we hadn't started it yet.
Right.
Partly through June, we had it going, and July was our first full month with Park Mobile. We've had $1,390 in transactions. So if you extrapolated that out over a whole year, compared to the total parking revenue the borough brings in, that would be somewhere around 25 to 33% of our total parking revenue. So I think it's encouraging the rate of adoption we already have. I think it's going to be something we'll continue to promote and continue to encourage people to use.
Cool. It's wonderful. So it was definitely worth it.
Yeah, and there's the community is really benefiting from it.
Right, and it was worth it for us to invest in that because they're actually, going to go and spend the time to get it all set up and everything because people are actually using it. So they're finding the benefit. That's wonderful. The win-win.
Yes.
We like it. Okay. The next item is the public parking lot.
So unfortunately, that's on hold for now, and we can talk about that more maybe in a month or so.
Yep. Okay. We have a couple of action items that I believe are going to be coming before council on the 18th. The parking meter purchase that I think we talked last time about in the packet for the 18th. We'll have something that shows the quote for replacing the meters, replacing the analog meters with regular digital meters, as well as replacing the digital meters that the free 10-minute buttons, so council could see the difference in cost. And then the other is the 201 Save Line parking permit program. And then you have given us the application form that's been drafted, and that looks, fine to me. It's a regular form, but I wondered, is that going to go in the packet for the 18th?
I was planning on it, yeah.
Okay. Will there be any written description of? Okay, so that's what I wondered is will that be part of the application, or is that going to be a piece that's on the website?
Oh no, let me back it up. I tried to finish it.
Yeah, that explains,
So no, there'll be a I guess it's like anything else in the borough where we don't have a permit for, and then either somewhere else on the website will be explaining what the permit is for. And we'll have a separate, I think, education and outreach campaign if council moves forward with this to make sure people know and understand what this opportunity is.
So I guess I would just say that council would like to know that. Maybe as part of the packet, there could be just a little description of, you're going to have to prove that you're a resident, and the vehicle, give us your vehicle registration card, and if it's not registered to your address in the borough, they'll prove to our satisfaction that this is like a work vehicle, or that, just so they understand what's allowed to be parked up there.
Absolutely, yeah, there's definitely going to be a memo.
I can hear that question, in my head of what, because I was up there recently, and there's a lot of what looks like, well, it's questionable whether that should be parked up there. I was surprised. There's a lot of trucks with graffiti on them up there. So I don't think those are business trucks. Maybe, but I doubt it. Anyway, okay. Wonderful, thank you, because it was great to get council to move on this. The next item on our list is to talk about the presentation at the education meeting of our residential parking recommendations. And we talked about at our last meeting that we want to include in the business packet the document that I've been updating each time as we meet that has our final recommendations in it. And we talked about adding some rationale for our different decisions. And I didn't get a chance to send this to you guys until yesterday afternoon at like 3:30. So I don't know if you, yes. So I don't know if you've had a chance to really read through it. So, and I have a couple places where I had some questions in there. So, but before we start going through that, what I just wanted to mention was I was also planning to add to this an appendix that would list the concerns that we had identified when we started working on this last fall, whatever it was. List of concerns, just to kind of remind us all of why we're even doing this. So I wanted council to have that as kind of written down back up. I had delivered that verbally in May when we presented our preliminary recommendations, but I wanted to written down, as well as a list of the resources that we use, the reports and that kind of stuff. I'm also thinking that I might want to add to this, and maybe it's only one thing, but I'm not sure, but a couple of things that we've talked about that aren't really residential parking related, but are parking, addressing issues like the wanting to change how ticketing can be done for someone who parks at a meter all day long and fees it. So to head off the question of, well, are you going to take care of X, Y, Z? Yes, we are planning to do that. Does that sound like a good thing to include somehow in this communication?
I mean, I'm fine with that. I think they just like split it into two sort of components. Like this is the stuff directly related to residential parking, and here's some other parking related.
Exactly. I was thinking a separate page. Yeah, and we'll see whether, I mean, who knows, maybe I'll only find one or two things, but at least it will, if somebody is reading the packet, they'll see, oh, you've already addressed this, so I don't need to get it. Okay, so I will do that. All right, so. Alright, and then the last thing that that I was doing with this and taking a look at, and I thought we could go through it together fairly quickly, is looking at the parking study task force, what their thoughts were, and just pointing out where we're either in agreement or disagreement, and so that we, you know, as we work through this, we're like, yeah, we covered our bases. So, could we then go to the rationales that I put in here, see if you have any thoughts? Oh, and Bob, I changed the number one a little bit, because when I read it again, I was like, oh, this sentence says the same thing as that one, you know, and I kind of like combined it. So, thank you. But I was curious to see what you thought about the rationale, and then I had a couple places where I had some questions for us to talk through. So, you know, I explained our rationale for allowing parking anywhere within a neighborhood as opposed to on the block, because we want to give more flexibility for people with permits, that we're prohibiting overnight parking without a permit, so that we increase parking availability for people with permits. I think that's, when we talk through this really well, you know, if we're asking people to pay more, they should get a little something to do it. So, oh, and I put letters in parentheses at the end, indicating whether this would be an ordinance change, a signage change, or a resolution, and I need to put a footnote on that.
Right.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I decided, oh, let's just do that one. So, we talked about staggering the rollout, and we wanted to stagger it because it staggers the processing. Do we want to explain why we chose the order? I'm not even sure if we need to say that. And then, is this a resolution thing? Would this be part of the resolution, this staggered?
I would defer a little bit to the solicitor. My gut instinct was this actually should be part of the ordinance.
Okay. Okay. Well, I can put it in there as ordinance, and if he says later and you don't have to, then that's, but my thought was it's probably not just an administrative decision.
Agreed, I think that.
Okay, so I would just put in there that it's ordinance. Okay. We also talked about how we want a formal process for adding the 2-hour zone or taking it away, should a law going to do that. So I just described that would ensure equitable treatment of future requests by residents. Is that, not that I want to cast stones in the past and say, well, they were done unequitably. I don't think they were. I think it was just kind of haphazard. Is that how you would characterize it, Bob? Because you were around when they did it.
Yeah, it's fine with me. I mean, I think probably council members will question why is it 60%, not 50%. I don't know.
Well, I think we did fall back on that, something else in the IVAR.
Yeah,
So.
well, and that's what I said, we're adopting their standards, so.
Good.
And they don't, they can change that if they want, but that's where we chose it. So, in the next section, we're talking about the new fees, and I just want to make sure that, Manager Brian is comfortable what I'm saying about fees. As I said, the increased fees are needed because the current fee covers less than 5%. It doesn't even cover 2%, but I thought that's really low. And the current fines cover approximately 20%. Now, what I didn't know for sure is, should I even include fines in here? Because
yeah, so fines are different than fees.
yeah.
So I would maybe, remove this mention of the 20%
Okay.
in regards to fines. But otherwise, I think it reads pretty well by
Okay. Super. Yeah, I will take that out. We'd already talked about a rationale for why we wanted 4 permits as a maximum. So I don't have a question on that. Unless you saw it, unless you read it and go, ooh, that needs to change. But
But I would just be prepared to respond to what the cost of commercial parking is. It's by comparison.
yes, that's a good point, Rob. I will have that as a cheat sheet.
Just to put it in context.
Yes, I'll just have it really handy, easily, and I've got it, but. And then next was the issue of changing the requirement that the vehicle has to be registered at your address. Now, I have no idea whether most people even are aware of this, really. So, but I thought it doesn't. We could maybe not say anything about it, but it felt funny not to have a rationale here when we have a rationale everywhere else. And really, the reason for that is so that you can't use a resident permit to circumvent the guest pass rules, right?
Well, and especially not just that, but, I'm sorry, Bob, just maybe an additional rationale is that we're charging for the number of permits.
Oh, yes.
We also want to be able to keep track of like what cars are registered where to ensure someone's paying the right
Yes.
permit fee.
And we have people who have cars registered in other states and other places who are leasing apartments in Harvard. And so if they're going to get a permit in Harvard, they should be registered in Harvard.
And the other, I don't know if this is really just piling on at this point.
Yeah.
Another fact I'll throw in there too is nowadays with vehicle registration, the county has the $5 fee, and that $5 fee goes towards transportation projects in the county. For example,
That's right.
our stormwater bump out
Yeah.
project is being paid for with those $5 fees.
So we would love people who move here permanently to register their car in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, people who are driving around Narberth and who are using our roads.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I'll put that in there, but I forgot about the, yes, we don't want someone to use this as a way to, I don't have as many permits at my address. Yeah. Okay. Then the next section is talking about the guest passes. And I wanted to include the rationale for the fees there, and that is really so that you don't use the guest pass system to circumvent the resident permit fee. If we didn't have a fee for the guest pass, I could easily imagine somebody applying for a guest pass for their car at their residence. So I think that's, it's all, both of those things are, they kind of work in tandem. If we're going to have fees for the resident permit, we have to have fees for the guest pass. But otherwise, it just isn't going to work.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm glad that you explicitly pointed out about, commercial, about service providers. I think that would be a big question.
Oh, me too, yeah. I don't want to get into that. Yeah, once, it's like, yeah, people have to be allowed to have the electrician pull up.
So here's the technical, like suppose you have a hospice nurse who's coming to the home, and who they need a guest pass, because they're not going to be driving a commercial vehicle.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, like, under the current system, we give that person a pass. I'm
So I
not
think-
sure how we do that.
Yeah, I think what they want you to do is to come tell us what's going on. You know what I mean?
Okay. They could put another.
Well, I don't know, maybe we would, for a situation like that, maybe we would just go ahead and, for the purposes of our system, give them a guest pass with no cost. Just so that way the parking controller's job isn't made more difficult, but that we're adhering to the spirit, of the regulation.
Okay. Maybe is there a, okay.
Well, and I guess,
It's fine.
well, and here's what I'm going to say too. A hospice nurse, I mean, they they're working for either an agency or do a lot of working throughout. They're going to be in neighborhoods where they have to pay for parking.
It's true.
So I'm sure this is not
It's a very good point.
it's got to be part of their business model in some fashion. And they're probably going to be like, oh, I go online and I get a guest pass. Okay, cool.
Same with people cleaning homes.
Right, exactly.
With their red, with their own car.
Right.
So it's built into the price.
Exactly, but, and if they're there for less than 2 hours, it's fine. That's the thing, this is a street where you get, or there's an unregulated street, maybe close enough that you can park on. So it's not like we're shutting them out from parking availability altogether. And I think it would be really hard to try to write something in the ordinance that said this type of service gets, but I think we could all, when Borough Council included this section in the code about commercial vehicles, that is pretty clear, because you're talking about, the electrician's truck, or the tree services, like on my street right now, where they're taking out this beautiful old tree that died over the last year. It says that, they don't have that permit. Okay, the next item was putting out that we are not going to permit commercial users to get a residential parking permit. And that, the rationale for that is that the current rules are complex and extremely hard to administer and enforce, and they create a hardship for the residents in some of the mixed-use areas. They really do. But the one thing that keeps coming to my mind, and I'm like, I don't know that there's anybody who's around. Why was this adopted in the first place? Do we know? And the only thought I had was just maybe I should check in with the past council president, see if he has any record, if that was something that happened when he was.
Why would commercial property come here?
Why did this?
For convenience.
For convenience for them, just for them. Okay, it wasn't like. I just want to make sure we're not missing some rationale for it.
No, convenience. Like, I think the biggest one is the law firm up in the corner of Montgomery and
We have a parking lot.
right, but it's convenience for them to be able to park near their office and their parking lot is small. But could you just insert the word, it makes sense to insert the word after, at the very first line, permits will no longer be granted to commercial, and then insert the word property, commercial property users, because this is to distinguish it from commercial vehicles. Does that make sense to you? Commercial property users.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Also, there's sometimes residents who have commercial vehicles that are entitled to a residential permit to park their
How about commercial
vehicle.
businesses?
Business users, sure. But it's I had a commercial vehicle and I lived in Harvard, I wouldn't be able to get a residential permit for my commercial vehicle.
Yeah.
Lot. But,
Yeah.
and so I just found it's confusing, so.
I got you.
So it's whatever you want to say,
Okay,
commercial,
let me think about
business,
that.
or property, or.
Yeah, let me,
I
you
mean,
know
we're
what?
not just issuing guest passes to commercial property users either, shoppers, so I guess we are. Never mind.
Well-
Never mind, I know I'm talking.
What I'll do is I'll
It's
look
gonna be quiet.
at the code and
No, I think
see.
you're right. Paul.
Yeah, you are, I think it's a good point. I'll look at the code and see how it describes this and see if that helps me come up with something that makes it really clear.
Thanks. Thank you.
The next item is just to mention that we're going to use license plate readers instead of stickers, and that there's not going to be any hang tags. And I know there's some people on council who keep saying there's no hang tags, and especially like, give everybody a guest pass hang tag, but that circumvents the whole guest pass thing, that circumvents residential parking. But I didn't know if I wanted to, like, how do I want to say that, you know?
Well,
should I put a rationale?
I think there are two big reasons that exactly like hang tags are, as opposed to stickers, hang tags are easily transferable,
That's true.
which make enforcement problematic. And then also number two, I think our goal was to make the program more accessible to residents. And if there's a hang tag involved, that makes it much more difficult for it to be a purely online sort of thing if people want to avail themselves of that option. You're now adding a step where even if someone does do it online, the borough office is still having to figure out how do we physically get them this physical hang tag.
Yeah, well, and I can hear a council member say, well, but why can't I choose one or the other? You know, I think, why can't I just, do it online if I want, but I don't need a hang tag, because you got to license, you're gonna look it up, so,
But I think the hang, yeah, so maybe the better argument is that hang tags are very easily transferable.
yeah, and so they're open to abuse.
Yeah.
The system, and so we can, and that, but to me, that's the other reason too, I'm like, how do you know, I mean, it just,
I think that might have been considered 5 years ago, but not as much anymore.
I have had at least one council member ask me, why don't we have hang tags? But, okay, all right. And then obviously, I don't think I need to say any rationale for why we want to make sure current signage and borough code line up when we get done, so I was like, I don't really put it in there. Okay, thank you, that was really helpful. So, in the parking study task force, just to refresh our memory, they kind of took the parking study, looked at all of the possibilities that Nelson Library laid out of things that we could do, and ranked them. They came up with top recommendations, second tier recommendations, and third tier recommendations, and then within those, ranked them highest to high to ongoing. So I kind of, just went through it quickly and said, well, I think we hit most of the things that they were suggesting. Some things that we're saying, that's not even a parking thing, that's a whole other, like they were talking about, thinking about redesigning streets. So, and I'm like, that's not, that's not what we're doing. So anyway, I thought we could go through those quickly and just comment on them and make sure there isn't anything here that we want to reflect. So this is in their top recommendations. Their highest priority is to compile a full list of current street parking policies. Well, we talked about that at the very beginning and said, we really don't have to do that. It's not as puzzling as I think it might have looked, really. So we said that's really not something that we do.
And I think they agreed as well that with the level of change that we're making to the system, that was a moot point anyway.
Exactly.
And I think the changes we're recommending in a lot of ways are going to simplify a lot of it. And I think we're in a position now where once council decides on whatever they want to do, then we can document what it is, and I think that concern will be addressed. Exactly,
yeah. I think they felt they were going to find something that would, shift. So, but we're like, hey, we're kind of starting over. So it's like it doesn't really matter that much. They recommended that this as a high priority revising the permit pricing and structure, which we are proposing. Now, it says, well, there was a wide variety in opinions among the task force as to how much the price should be, as well as what the revenue should be used to fund. The general consensus settled in the $20 to $25 per year price point, with proceeds used to partially defray the cost for the parking enforcement officer. We talked a lot about what we thought the base rate should be, and the fact that the task force came up with something lower than what we're proposing, I think that's just, we're looking at this and saying, hey, we're seeing the level of cost, and we're wanting to recoup that through this. So I don't feel that we need to explain why any more than that, why our number is different, and it'll be up to council to decide what the eventual base rate would be. So, they also acknowledged that Nelson Nyberg proposed tier. They had just second and third vehicles, but we said that's before. And they said that the general sense of the task force was that higher prices for additional household vehicles could be implemented, but they were that there was some initial resistance to charging a different fee if you had a driveway versus not. But they didn't explain why there was a concern there. And we talked about that a lot and felt that it was appropriate for the first permit to have a lower fee if you don't have a driveway. Again, I feel like that'll be up to the council. So I don't think there's anything there that we need to be ready to be challenged on. Really, it's just a decision. They said that meter policies should be revised. They were saying that it's really confusing because some places you can park up for up to 2 hours, other places 10, and that maybe that should be analyzed to and maybe changed to encourage trailer spaces throughout the day. I think we're addressing that in other ways. And we're also recognizing that we don't have enough data right now to be able to really propose any good changes for that. But we're going to get that through Park Mobile in some ways, and who knows, maybe down the road some other ways. So I don't think.
And then there's also the fiscal. We talked about the fiscal limitation. Even if we did want to change anything,
right,
the current parking meters don't allow us to.
Exactly. So I said there's a lot of reasons why we're not proposing those kinds of changes. And I think if we do a good job with the public parking lot, this is not going to be a problem. We just haven't had a good place for people to go to say, I need to be in the borough for 5 hours, where can I park? So I think we would address that. Then they recommended expanding relationships or partnerships with business and municipal lots. Well, we've already taken care of the municipal lot business. And we're, the next, one of the next steps is going to be seeing if we can have more partnership with the commercial users. So I think that's the difference. And then the other thing they had in their top recommendation was to regularly monitor parking data. Well, I think once we start getting good parking data, we will start monitoring it. So I felt like we've addressed all their top recommendations, and where we differ, we have reasons for why we differ. In their second tier recommendations, there's some things that, these are things, even though they say they're high, it's still down the road. Improved parking signage, which I think some of that will come as a result of the residential parking program, but maybe there's some down the road better signage for commercial areas. Develop parking wayfinding, again, down the road. Establish standards per PennDOT for street redesign. That's not a purview of us. Create a transparent street redesign process. Again, not our purview. Establish permit zones. This is interesting. They have that in their second tier recommendation as a medium action.
So excuse me, that last item, that sounds like something that's might be addressed if we get the grant.
Right, but it's not even our committee's purview.
Oh, our
That's what I'm
committee,
saying.
okay.
Yeah, no. Like, this is not even what we were asked to do as part of what we're doing, so, there's a lot of things like that, that, we weren't, someday
Will be
down.
addressed us.
Yeah, exactly, if someday down the road, there needs to be a committee, an ad hoc committee to work on, complete streets or something, well, then that's what I would do. But anyway, they had recommended establishing permit zones, but as a lower, level thing, but we decided, we'd like to go ahead and do that. We think, right now, we think that makes sense. They recommended simplifying the downtown regulations. Again, we're a little, it's the same thing as revising the meter pricing, the structure. We're kind of a little hamstrung by the meters themselves, but also, again, go back to, we don't even have enough data yet to know for sure how should we revise it. So I think it'll be interesting to see what impact there is of both having Park Mobile, which does not allow you to keep feeding the meter once you put the limit on it, it's done. And then when we adopt the ordinance change that will not allow you to use cash to feed the meter, who knows, maybe things would be much better down there. So we'll just have to see. This is not even remotely in our committee. Update the zoning code to refine parking requirements for new development. And then consider a commercial permit parking program. And we talked about that and said, we just don't have the available excess capacity to establish some kind of program right now. But we're going to keep that, on the back burner as something that maybe down the road the borough would want to consider. And then their third tier recommendations are all things that really aren't. Well, no, that's not true. We've kind of taken a start at the first one. We ran parking enforcement. And that was through.
We changed the job description.
Exactly,
We brought a new person in.
Yes, to be more a downtown ambassador as opposed to I just got my stick out.
I would say, I don't know, a certain extent, I would say we have accomplished that because if you're talking to residents or business owners about Paul and the work that he does.
They're much happier.
Yeah, I think he does, I think he's fulfilling that role that we.
Yes. So that's great. Then another thing was to advance bicycle facilities. Again, not part of our designate, refine, permit streets. Well, this is just saying, this is creating the process to add a new 2-hour zone if you wanted it. We decided we should also allow you to take a walk. So, so we have that. We've done that one. Forgot that was in there. Determine parking demand from recent developments. And, just to kind of get a gauge of whether new development is causing an increase in parking demand or not. Again, I'm not sure that that's this committee's purview, but I would have to say, I don't know about you, but I'm not hearing any anecdotal complaints about 114 Forest that like that. I'm not hearing that there's parking problems down there. In fact, I see more on-street parking down in that area now because they added a couple spaces when the construction was completed.
There's been a net reduction in traffic and parking.
That's what I would, exactly. Then the last two items are, again, not really part of our purview. Improve overall pedestrian interface with parking and explore overall circulation changes, so like along the streets and stuff. Oh, I forgot they had a 4-tier recommendation. These were all low. We've done one thing. Develop a reserve space application process for like ADA, electric vehicles, oversized vehicles we've got. There's a process for ADA spaces, so I'm not sure. I guess we could look at that and see if there's, is there anything that we should.
Yeah, that might be a future, that might be one future committee item, yeah.
And then upgrade parking payment technology, which we've done, so. Yeah, compile a full list of parking and driveways, I skipped over that, but we said, no, we don't need to do that, because we're not going to verify. That you're just going to trust that you have it tested properly, and if someone points out to the borough that somebody hasn't, then their permit will be taken away until they pay the proper fine, so proper fee, so how do you like the?
Yeah, I think from listening to that list, I mean, I guess my take, the only really two outstanding items for this committee at this point are the private parking lots, figuring out how to try and make that work, and this idea of like ADA pass or whatever.
Yes, is there something more that we need to be doing than what we've already done? Because we do have some handicap accessible spaces downtown, but maybe there needs to be more. There is a process where people get that designation of their residence. I mean, that's a process.
Yeah, and it could be we talk through it and we just make sure we all understand what that process is, and then we say that's fine.
Right, yeah. But then maybe there's something else with refined vehicles, but that maybe is, maybe what we've got right now is fine, and we'll know enough about it to make it sure. But yeah, we could add that to our next, to our future. Okay.
So, I think Bob has some thoughts, I'll just say real quick, unfortunately, private parking lots, with everything I've had going on, I don't have any update on that, but I do want to work on that.
Yeah,
Maybe, it seems to me that like, at most, we have maybe like one more meeting with the stuff to do as a committee, and then maybe then we could go into dormancy.
well, I think that would be true after the ordinance is done, ordinance changes. If council gives us the go-ahead to do an ordinance, that I think we'll still need to meet, but maybe we don't have to do that. I think we want to see how we can get what's the timing for getting the new program into place. If we can get it to start January 1st, that'd be ideal.
So I guess, I would propose, and maybe this is what we propose to council as well on the 18th, is that going forward, maybe we go ahead and switch this once a month, maybe just the second Tuesday at 8 a.m. And once we've accomplished the private talking through more private parking lots, having a conversation about those other sort of vehicles, and having an ordinance get passed by council, that's our designation, when we can then go to council and ask for the committee to be sunsetted.
Right. Exactly, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay,
because
that's right.
Because I think we do need to
It's
shepherd
a little more than,
ordinance.
it's a little more than I.
But I think we're close.
That makes
I think we're really close. I mean, my ballpark is, I would say definitely, I would think that by the end of the year, council will be sunsetting this committee.
That's what I think, too. Yeah. And that's why I'm not ready to say, oh, we're only going to once a month after this, because who knows, maybe for the month of September, we'll want it twice just to get the ordinance, boom, going, and, but we'll just have to see, because it depends on what, the drafting of the ordinance goes on, and we're ready for us to look at it, how much we can do outside of committee on it. So I feel like we should just leave the meetings there, but then decide, are we holding it or not? Because that gives us a placeholder in case we need it.
Sure. I'm about to go on a mission.
I know, you are.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and your help.
Really great work, Barbara.
Oh, thank you.
We're on the way.
Yes, I'm like, this is so easy, and we can all taste
I
it.
really think you're kind of you've dusted all the corners.
Oh, Bob, can I read you something real quick that I saw from December?
Are we still recording or are we on?
Yeah, we're
Well, it's still
sorry.
parking, but December 2015, and I'm adjourning the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.